What's up, everybody? Welcome into another exciting episode of That Dynasty Show. Today, one of our subscribers recently commented on one of our videos and asked if we could do a very specific mock draft. He wanted to see a 10-team PPR, 1 QB from the 8 spot. So today, that's exactly what we're doing. I took the 8 spot. Tyler took the 9 spot. And not going to lie, this is take 2 of the video because we got through the first round and a half and realized we forgot to set it in Dynasty format. So we were very surprised when DeAndre Swift and Jamar Chase were there for us at 108 and 109. Have a feeling that's not going to happen again. But before we dive into the mock draft, Tyler, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, it was a really good start. Disappointed I didn't get my value there, but it's all right. If you watched the last video, I was telling you guys the clouds were rolling in and the sun is now shining. So here we are. It's still a beautiful day, right? Here we are at 6 o'clock.
Excellent. That's what we love to hear. 6 o'clock on a Thursday. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. Tomorrow is Friday. Anyway, well, I guess for those of you watching, today is a couple days after Friday. I don't know how YouTube works, time travel, all that fun stuff, but I know how mock drafts work. That's exactly what we're here to do today. So I'm going to go ahead, share my screen, and hit that start button. And of course, I got to hit that mute button. Oh, I don't want to see that. Hit the mute button. All right, here we go. So Jonathan Taylor goes number 1 overall. Makes more sense than the last one we were in. Chase, Jefferson, both in the top 4. And here we go. So very interesting spot here. I'll just come right out. I'm between Javonte and CeeDee Lamb in this case scenario. CeeDee Lamb is one of my top 4 dynasty wide receivers. Javonte is one of my top 4 dynasty running backs. So it's kind of a coin flip for me here. Actually, since I know Tyler's going to have a lot to say at CD, I'll leave him for you at 109. I'm going to take Javonte at 108. And I think in a real draft, I would take Javonte over CD. I am famously on this channel known for taking T. Higgins over CeeDee Lamb. And I know I can get T. Higgins in a couple of rounds from now, and I don't need to take CeeDee Lamb at the 109. Javonte Williams is still treated as a top 3 dynasty running back in a lot of leagues out there. So getting him at 108, I think it's good value. The sky's the limit for him. And yeah, if anyone is going to turn into this year's Jonathan Taylor, it's probably going to be Javonte. So happy to get him at 108.
Yeah, and this is a pretty good spot to draft from, right? Because even if the order goes differently, even if it goes, after Justin Jefferson, if it goes, Javonte, then CD, and then, Javonte or whatever, doesn't really see him, whatever. I'm comfortable with Cooper Kupp or Christian McCaffrey following to me and going that route with my team. But as far as CeeDee Lamb goes, I would take him over all of those guys, including Javonte. I think I would much rather build my team around a receiver, especially one who's in such a high-powered offense. It was the number 1 offense in the league last year, and there's so many vacated targets. Everyone talks about Amari Cooper, but Cedric Wilson's also gone, and Michael Gallup's hurt. Who knows when he'll, be back on the field and healthy, right? So especially for this season, the outlook on CD is just booming right now. I think I wouldn't be shocked to see him finish with 160 plus targets and like 125, 130 catches, 1,400 yards, and a 10 touchdown season. Like he is by far and away the most talented receiver on that team. I think he's probably the best offensive player that they have on the roster, and it's going to show this year. And he's going to get such a high concentration in a high-powered offense with a quarterback that I really believe in. I know a lot of people might be questionable about Dak Prescott, but I'm all in on it, and I'm totally fine taking CD, especially knowing that I can pair him with Dak Prescott later on in the draft and feel pretty comfortable about it.
See, now I really like that we're doing this. I'm at 108, you're 109. I think hopefully this is a really helpful video, for anyone that is drafting 1 QB from the later point, because you and I, there's a lot of things that we think similarly on, but there's a lot of things that we think differently on. And you and I are about to build 2 completely different teams. So it'll really kind of open up the possibilities for sure. But I'll stop talking. I'll let you pick your 202 here.
No, it's all good. And like you said, I do like that we picked this format because it kind of helps. Like, oh, well, what if you got sniped, or like, what other options do you have around this ADP, right? And
I'm
here,
gonna guess before you announce it, it's gonna be Kyle Pitts, isn't it?
actually, wow. Well, thank you. I didn't even see Kyle Pitts was on the board.
I know
Well,
you too well.
I'll tell you who I was gonna take, who I was gonna actually kind of reach a little bit for was gonna be Brees Hall because he was gonna be the running back that I think gives me the most flexibility and the most long term potential here. I mean, I have a young receiver in CD Lamb, so I was definitely gonna be comfortable taking Brees Hall there and having a 6 year outlook of good production, right? 6 7 years, but yeah, no doubt, I'm going Kyle Pitts here if he falls. And honestly, I would have been I would have been pretty okay with Mark Andrews here too, and not have been whining about it whatsoever. Like the ADP on Mark Andrews is so beat. I think starting off with a young stud, pairing it with Mark Andrews is one of the best starts to any draft, especially when you're drafting in the later end of the round. But I mean, if Kyle Pitts is on the board, I kind of have to take him over Mark Andrews. If I really do believe that Mark Andrews is better, then I'm trading back, and I'm not even against that at all, right? If that's an option, if you want to trade back for Mark Andrews, go for that. But drafting Kyle Pitts here kind of delays my winning window a little bit, right? So it's kind of gonna handcuff me a little bit later on throughout the draft, where I'm gonna kind of have to stay young. But that's kind of been a common theme throughout a lot of the mock drafts that we've done.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked there because I was looking at these projections. I was like, how is Devontae only projected 177, Debo 190? That doesn't make any sense. I was checking the settings. The settings are good. It's set up to Dynasty PPR. I guess
You
I
almost
guess
just gave me a heart attack, dude. I was about to say, like, come on.
Oh, no, no, no. We don't need to restart it again. I just think the sleeper projections are a bit wonky here.
I was gonna say,
Um,
I loved my start 2 times in a row, and I didn't want to have. I mean, I guess third time's the charm, right? But I'd rather it be the second time.
Now, and CD and Kyle Pitts is a great start here. So I'm between three guys, and it's going to be Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, and Mark Andrews. And I know, according to Sleeper, Mark Andrews isn't supposed to go until pick 25 overall, which is the 301. But I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Like, I would be more than happy to take him in the start of a second round, one QB, in most 12-team leagues. And a 10-team league really isn't any different. Like I've said, I would take him at 201. That's pick 13 in a 12-teamer. This is pick 13 right here. So it's kind of a lot to think about. I feel like I can't really go wrong with the pick between Mixon, Diggs, or Mark Andrews. However, dude, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm going to eliminate Stephon Diggs from here just because, we got Javonte Williams, right? We might as well go for a kind of younger team. Joe Mixon, he just turned 26, so we still are going to see another year or two of production out of him. Just know that in a lot of situations, I would go Joe Mixon, but I am going to take Mark Andrews here because the situation or the positional advantage that a guy like Mark Andrews gives you is just insane. I mean, he beat out Travis Kelce for the TE1 last year. He's only 26. Baltimore has done absolutely nothing to improve Lamar Jackson's situation. So it's just going to be the Mark Andrews show. And there's a lot to like about that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, I'm almost kind of happier about getting Mark Andrews because he still does have a really long like playing window left, right? He still got like 4 or 5 years probably of production before you're like, all right, this guy's probably half foot in the grave. But yeah, we were kind of hoping that Kyle Pitts turns out to end up being the consistent tight end one, tight end two, tight end three, like year after year. Because I have so much faith in him, and because the value on him is so high. I mean, I couldn't pass up on him. But yeah, I'm walking away happy with Mark Andrews and also Joe Mixon. Other than Brees Hall, the only reason I would go with Brees Hall is just age. Joe Mixon is my favorite running back in that tier of the guys who are right in their prime with Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook's like kind of on the way downhill. We kind of have to assume Austin Eckler, right? I would take Joe Mixon over all those guys, including Derrick Henry, who went right before him too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like looking at it, I would take Joe Mixon before every single running back that's gone in the second and third round. It'd be kind of a struggle between picking him and Dalvin Cook, but I think given the situation, a little bit younger, less injury history, I probably would go Joe Mixon over Dalvin Cook in a lot of scenarios. And Tyler, I know you know who I'm taking here, so I'll let you announce it if you want.
Yeah, well, your plan worked out, buddy. So, yeah, T. Higgins fell into your lap. You got a similar value at the 308 that I got at the 109, right? So, I like that for you a lot.
Exactly. Like I said, in my mind, T. Higgins is my dynasty wide receiver 3. I have him over CeeDee Lamb. So I I took a gamble. I don't know if he actually falls to the 308 in a real draft because I have a hard time believing that Mahomes, Allen, and Herbert all go in the top, 27 picks. I feel like that's kind of rich for my blood in one QB, but it worked out really well. I've got a stud at the running back position, a young stud. I've got a young stud at the wide receiver position. And Mark Andrews, I mean, he's only 26. I wouldn't go and say he's a young stud, but he's a very goodly aged stud. So I'm pretty pumped with this start so far.
Yeah, and tight ends last, man. I mean, I don't want to beat the drum on Mark Andrews too much, but yeah, T. Higgins is going to be a really good option for a long time. I'm not sure how I would if I would want him to be my wide receiver one in 2022, but going forward, I mean, it's hard to get a wide receiver that has the value of T. Higgins without having a in the top without being in the first round. So yeah, I really do. I love that there. I mean, if you're able to get T. Higgins in the third, I'm all for it. But so here I'm gonna get the next best thing that fell into my lap, and I'm going to snag up Jalen Waddle here. Jalen,
Really? That is not who I thought you were going with.
well, the guy who you might think I'm going with, I might go with here is the guy you thought I was going with, the running back.
I thought you were going to go with Saquon.
No, no, no. Only because there was another guy on the board that I was kind of hoping was going to fall to me, and I knew that either one of them were going to be okay. I mean, I was kind of looking at the board, looking at Team 10, not thinking they were going to go with 4 running backs back to back to back to back to back. But I knew that either Saquon or ETN were going to fall to me here. So I'm going to go with ETN. Apparently, he's been balling out in training camp. They say he looks like his team's Debo Samuel. So he is, a good friend of Trevor Lawrence's, and I feel really comfortable about him being my RB1 going forward. I talked about Breece Hall in the second round, and I don't even mind Breece Hall at the 13th pick overall or whatever, 12th pick overall. Right, I don't mind that at all. But Travis Etienne, I think, is kind of a lateral move to a guy like Breece Hall. You get the age, you get the upside, you're going to get the target volume. I think you're going to get all that stuff with ETN. So he's going to have a really long winning window for me. And if this is my top 4 picks in a dynasty startup with 1 QBs, I'm super hyped about it. With honestly, with either of our starts so far, I'm curious to see where you're going to go. I think I have a feeling, but I'll let you make the pick. But yeah, I'm liking where you're drafting at the 8 spot, my friend.
Yeah, I'm loving mine. I'm loving yours. 2 very different tactics, but both working out pretty well. I like going ETN there. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of young upside. He was some people's RB1 last year, even over Najee Harris in that rookie class. And, I'll admit I was one of them. And I really think that if we didn't see an injury to Travis Etienne, I think he would have shown a lot last year. So very excited to see what he's going to do. Now, this pick here, it's an interesting pick, right? I'm going to take Aaron Jones, and I'm not going to hesitate about that. And here's the reason why. Mark Andrews, not only is that a good dynasty pick, but that's kind of a win now pick, right? Like we reached on a tight end in the second round. We reached for that positional advantage. Aaron Jones is the only guy in the quote unquote like third tier of running backs that has it in the range of possibility where he can be the overall RB1 in 2022. We've seen him go off for 40 to 45 points in many games before. The Green Bay wide receiver room is a mess. Actually, earlier this week, the Green Bay staff was literally just saying, yeah, Aaron Jones can run a route just as well as any receiver in this league. You can hit him downfield just as well as any receiver in this league. that leads me to believe that, okay, even though he's probably only going to see maybe 40% of the touches from the backfield on the ground, he's going to see probably over 100 targets. Like there is, assuming Christian McCaffrey is healthy all year, Aaron Jones might be the only running back in the entire league, or one of the very few that can contend with McCaffrey's target share out of the backfield or just in general at the running back position. So Aaron Jones, I know he's a bit on the older side. I say that, but he's literally the same, or he's 1 year older than Joe Mixon, who we almost took 2 rounds ago, and they have similar upside. So I'm not upset to get him at the 403 at all.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think one thing that's really important though is that we're both like we picked a game plan and we're sticking to it, right? When I went Kyle Pitts, like I have a really big window, and it might not be this year, but it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years from now. And that kind of led to me, taking Jalen Waddle over Saquon Barkley because Saquon's probably not going to help me win at the same time as Kyle Pitts, right? But ETN will. And now here you are, after taking a guy like Javonte who's going to be productive this year, Andrews is going to be productive this year, Higgins. I mean, I think he at best, low end wide receiver 1 this year, kind of his ceiling. A little bit capped with Jamar Chase at this point. He's still young, but I mean, you're getting Aaron Jones. I think he's going to be a monstrous RB2. So you have 3 positional advantages already that are going to be huge production points, and just sticking to the game plan is a huge point here. Sorry to take up your 3 minutes here. I'll let you borrow some of mine when we go on to my pick.
No, it's totally fine because I know exactly who I'm taking. I started off looking for that young upside. I started off by looking for that young upside, and now I'm solidifying my team as a win now team. And I'm going to go with Keenan Allen here. I mean, look at this, dude. PPR 10, 14, 6, 12, 3. He has not had a finish worse than wide receiver 14 overall in the last 5 seasons. And I don't care that he's 31. I don't care that I've got a short window with him. He's Justin Herbert's favorite target, and that's all that matters to me. There's no reason to believe that he won't be a top 15 wide receiver in 2022. He really hasn't slowed down at all, right? Like he faced a lot of injuries early on in his career, so he doesn't have as much tread on the tires as a typical 30, 31-year-old wide receiver. So I think you're still getting at least 1, maybe 2 more seasons out of him playing at this elite level. So I'm more than happy to pair that. And now I can say I'm happy with Keenan Allen being my wide receiver 1 in 2022, and I'm ecstatic with T. Higgins being my wide receiver 2 if I'm looking at it from your angle. So I'm chilling with this. I'm happy.
Wait, who'd you say was going to be my what?
Well, no, because you said you don't know if you'd be comfortable with T. Higgins being your wide receiver 1 in 2022. But if you're in a redraft league, you'd probably be fine with Keenan Allen being your wide receiver 1 and T. Higgins being your wide receiver 2. So just kind of swinging it from a different angle there.
Yeah, sorry. No, I get your point now. Yeah, I mean, Keenan Allen has aged quite well. He really is like old reliable. Like there's no reason to really think that he's going to fall off. I mean, a lot of people are high on Mike Williams. I'm really not in that fan club. I mean, he had like one real breakout year at 27 years old. While Justin Herbert's still really good, and we can say like, I mean, it was off a boom or bust, really. Like he wasn't really all that consistent. I think Keenan Allen is still the guy there, but I'm glad you went with him because it makes me a lot more comfortable at your team ending up winning this year, and it hands me Chris Godwin. And if you've ever watched a show from that Dynasty show, you already know we don't really have to talk much really about Chris Godwin here.
Yeah, I was really hoping Chris Godwin would slip back to me at 603. I kind of had a feeling he wouldn't since you're picking 2 in between there, but
we talk too much, dude. Come on.
Yeah. The only reason why I went Keenan Allen over Chris Godwin is just because we haven't heard an official announcement that Godwin would be ready for the start of the season, right? Like if you can guarantee me he'd be there week 1, I would 1,000% take Godwin over Keenan Allen. And honestly, in most case scenarios, I probably still would take Godwin over Allen, but just for the direction that I'm trying to take this team in, I think Keenan Allen is just going to offer a bit more of a safety net as a top 15 wide receiver this year, especially because like we haven't even touched base on this yet, but like Tom Brady's been away from the team for the last week and a half now. And there's a lot of rumors speculating that he could just be retiring, right? Like we don't know what's going on with Brady. It's probably getting blown way out of proportion, but like definitely kind of something to monitor for these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? So who knows? But yes, in most case scenarios, I would go Godwin over Allen. I'm just really trying to build a healthy mix of younger guys, but also win now guys. So Keenan Allen is my anchor.
Yeah, and I love that. But yeah, that'd be a real dirty move by Tom Brady, wouldn't it? I mean, I have Chris Godwin in free in like 78% of my best ball draft. I was really, really freaking pissed off about that. But let's see. So here, I did build a young team. There is a chance, right, that Kyle Pitts can be, a top 8, top 7, top 6, even top 5 tight end this year. He is talented enough, right? And there's a chance that I could end up being a competitive team this year. Even if I'm not, I'm really comfortable with a guy we've also talked a lot about on this show. We think he's severely undervalued, and Josh Jacobs being my RB2 for the next, 3 years, right? I'm comfortable with having him there and taking the consistent production, regardless of where his career takes him.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to go with him there, and that's kind of who I was going to go after if you didn't take him. I mean, what, he's 24 years old, 24 years old. He's done nothing but be really consistent for fantasy football. Obviously 2023, where he's going to be playing, nobody knows. But dude, he's talented and he's young and he scores touchdowns. Like there's nothing wrong with taking him as your RB2 there at 602, because even if he doesn't stay in Vegas, you know he's going to land on his feet, find himself a home somewhere.
Yeah, and I would take him over J.K. Dobbins, who went how many rounds ago?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Antonio Gibson too. So I think if Josh Jacobs falls into your lap, I'm taking him every time.
Yeah, so here there's a part of me that's tempted to take Leonard Fournette, right? Because I think he is a value at this point in the draft. However, it's a dynasty league, and I think if I take Fournette, I'm officially more into the redraft territory, right? After going Aaron Jones and Keenan Allen. So he's a guy I'm going to avoid. Obviously, don't need Darren Waller. I'm not going to take Kenny Walker. I have no interest, to be honest with you. Jerry Jeudy, not interested. TJ Hawkinson, don't need him. Treylon Burks, I would like him to prove it a bit before I hop on the hype train. I think taking him at 603 is just too damn early for me. And we're kind of in this weird dead zone, right? Like, I don't love any of these guys. Like, there's not a single person here that I'm really clamoring to make my wide receiver 3 or to make my RB2. Kind of grossed out to say this, but I'm taking a quarterback at 603 and a 1 QB. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts because I think Jalen Hurts is the perfect fit for the team that I'm trying to make. He is the perfect example of both youth, upside, and a very high ceiling. Last year, what did he finish as last year? He was the QB9 overall, and nobody really expected it. His situation has gotten infinitely better, right? Their offensive line got a little bit better. They brought in A.J. Brown. It's just this Philadelphia team believes in Jalen Hurts, and I believe in Jalen Hurts too. If his floor is what we saw last year, he is a weekly potential week winner, right? And he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. He's only 24 years old. He's got the rushing upside. Like, did I reach at 603? Yeah, definitely. But there was no one else there that I felt really some sort of way for, like we say this all the time. Don't be a slave to that sleeper ADP. Get your guys. Don't reach like a tremendous amount, but I reached one round for Jalen Hurts, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
Especially when you don't have a pick for how many? What is it, like 16 or something like that, right? Like 16. Like go get your guy, and especially, I actually really like that timing, right? Like I feel like there's kind of a fall off, right there, right with like the Elijah Mitchell, Kenny Walker range. So I do really like that, especially when you already have a tight end. Maybe Hawkinson could have gone there if you don't end up getting a tight end early, but I think that is good timing. Especially, I don't see a real big positional advantage for anyone that you missed out on there that isn't still on the board for you here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if I didn't see the advantage there, like Jalen Hurts, he's a every week starter for me. Like, looking at these guys, like they're gonna go potentially in and out of my flex spot with some of the guys I'll draft in these next few rounds, right? So I'm not too bothered by it. But next one up, Not going to help me a ton this year, but you know what? I haven't made a purely youth selection yet. Somehow I am in 7 dynasty leagues. I'm the only person I know that has this guy as the wide receiver 1 of the 2022 class, and I have him in 0 leagues. Can't even get him in mock drafts, so I'm going to take him here. I'm going to take Jameson Williams. He is already in my top 20 for dynasty wide receivers, even though I won't get him probably until the midway point of the season. I probably won't really need him too much in the first half, right? I think he's a guy that's got an infinite ceiling. I think that he could be the new age, Tyreek Hill. He could be what we saw out of Jalen Waddle last year. So, yeah, I'm going to take a shot at 708 over guys like Bateman, Sutton, Darnell Mooney, because you know what? Detroit traded up for Jameson Williams. When he is finally on the field, he will be, by the end of the year, the highest targeted player in that offense. And I don't think that's a bold take to say. So big fan of Jameson Williams. Happy to get him as my wide receiver 3.
Yeah, another guy that, if you've been watching the channel, and of course you have, right? You don't really even need to hear us talk about all that much. But here, this is kind of a really good tier for a young core, right? To add on to with
Wait,
depth.
before you keep talking, Team 10,
What
6 running backs. Have you
wow.
noticed that? I just noticed that.
Dude, as soon as you said it, I was like, wow. I mean, it's pretty good because we both ended up with solid running back rooms. So I mean, I guess regardless, you're gonna end up with a pretty good running back room if you follow our advice. There's a lot of guys on the board. So,
Yeah, seriously.
but yeah, so there's a lot of good young receivers here. Chris Olave is really enticing here. He's at the very top of the ADP. You know, hmm, I'm gonna. It's so neck and neck for me. Gonna go with Rashad Bateman, just because. Just
I
because.
really thought you were going to take Dak since you made that comment earlier.
No. There's so many. There's still a lot of good quarterbacks on the board that I'd be comfortable with. Like Deshaun Watson's still on the board, and if I could still pair him with a guy like a Derek Carr later and still compete this year, right? So I had a lot of options there, but I like staying young, and I think here I might be reaching a little bit. I was kind of hoping that Chris Olave went, so I wouldn't look stupid saying they were so neck and neck. But man, Juju's a guy I want on my roster so bad, but here I am. I'm gonna take Chris Olave. I said it. I'm gonna stick with it. He's a guy who I actually ranted and raved about in our rookie video, right? I think he's a guy who's like underrated. If there weren't so many good receivers in this class, I mean, he's a solid guy that I like ending up with. I think he's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum with Jameson Williams. I think Chris Olave is a really safe pick, while Jameson Williams is just an exploding high upside type guy. I think Chris Olave is going to be a really consistent guy in the NFL for a long time, and a guy who I'm going to be really comfortable with as my wide receiver 6. I think I'm getting a lot of positional advantages with how this draft has worked out, and I'm comfortable with it. But I would have also been happy with Juju there, a guy who I think is so underrated. But I am interested to see where you go here.
Yeah, and I like the pick of Chris Olave there. Brings a lot to your team. And like you said, I mean, you're building a young team. I think Chris Godwin at the age of 26 is the oldest guy on your team through 8 rounds. So you've got a very sustainable window, right? Definitely a different tactic than I've used, but you probably have just as good of a chance as any, to make a legitimate run this year. So ideally, I would like to get an RB3 here, but I'm not going to because I can wait. All of the good wide receivers are towards the top of this list, and all of the running backs are kind of a dime a dozen at this point. I mean, like, obviously, I like Chase Edmonds. I like Dameon Pierce. Kareem Hunt's okay. Tony Pollard's kind of good, but I'm not gonna reach on either of those guys. So I'm kind of stuck between Darnell Mooney and Elijah Moore right now. And, I know some people would consider taking Cortland Sutton here. I've just never been a Cortland Sutton guy. honestly, with Tim Patrick out for the year, Sutton could lead that team in red zone targets. So it's definitely intriguing, but just not the route that I'm going to go because I personally don't believe in him. I think Darnell Mooney offers more upside for 2022, but I think Elijah Moore is more talented. The Jets have a lot more invested in him than Chicago has in Darnell Mooney. And I think Elijah Moore could have a longer shelf life in this league. And we saw a very small sample size out of Elijah Moore last year, but what we did see was just like really awesome, right? Like this whole stretch 10, 13, 27, 13, 29, 9, 20, like that's pretty awesome. But I think I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney because I'm going to need someone to put in while Jameson Williams is out. And I think Darnell Mooney offers more upside for 2022. He's got no target competition outside of Cole Kmet, whereas Elijah Moore, they brought in Garrett Wilson. They have Corey Davis. They have different tight ends. They have Breece Hall and Michael Carter, who are both really good pass catching running backs, right? Like the Jets offense in my mind is going to be spread out. Darnell Mooney, he's like the dark horse candidate to lead the league in targets this year because who else is Justin Fields going to throw it to? So I really like that pick there. He is only 24 years old. He's going to stick around in Chicago for a little while. Even though they don't have a high draft capital invested in him, I think he's proven enough to be a staple for them going forward.
Yeah, and I like the Darnell Mooney pick, right? Because he is a really good receiver, right? Like we saw just a lot of like disconnection between him and Justin Fields last year. But I think one of the most important things I want to say though is I'm avoiding Cortland Sutton at that cost all day long. I mean, he's the most expensive piece of that Denver offense. They're all so discounted, and well, I guess he's not the most expensive, right? Jerry Jeudy, but I don't know. There's just no reason for the hype around Cortland Sutton, if you ask me. I mean, he's only got one top 24 finish, and most guys you can say that about. It's like, oh, like they were hurt for half the year, right? He's played a full season 3 out of 4 years, so and he's underwhelmed entirely every year. Yeah, there's a chance Russell Wilson revives him, but I'd rather have almost any other piece of that Denver offense. But back to Darnell Mooney, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who got open a lot last year, just got missed a lot. While I do have faith in Justin Fields, I mean, it was the least productive offense in the league last year in terms of wide receiver production out of the quarterback position, right? And it makes me nervous, but he is a guy that, I don't think you're going to be relying too heavily on this year with T. Higgins and Keenan Allen up top. But yeah, I don't know. The whole Justin Fields thing, it makes me nervous about Darnell Mooney, but I would take him over most of the guys on the board there. I think if you ask me right now to trade Juju for Darnell Mooney, I don't think I'm doing it though.
Yeah, no, I'm just not. I don't know. I'm not a Cortland Sutton guy. I know we're talking about Juju and Darnell Mooney again. I just get so distracted when we talk about Cortland Sutton because I just don't understand the hype. But I'm trying to like simultaneously think about my pick here because you took up 2.5 minutes of my clock. Thanks. But no, I'm just messing with you. There's a lot to like here. I can't decide if I want to go because like I like Allen Robinson, I like Brandon Cooks, I like Michael Thomas, I like Brandon Ayuk, like tons of wide receivers here. I already have a decent amount of receivers, but there's room in my flex for these, right? Like I can start a ton of wide receivers, and I'm gonna take Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is just awesome. Like we look at his history, recent memory, like he was the 20 overall last year, 16 before that. Obviously, 2019, not his year, but then he was 13, 15, 9, 13. Like Brandon Cooks has been largely really awesome since entering the league. He is 8 years of experience and he's only 28 years old. Houston has literally no one else to throw that ball to, right? They have Brevin Jordan, who is a second-year tight end. They have Nico Collins, who's a second-year wide receiver. They have Chris Conley, who has never had a big NFL career. And that's literally it. Brandon Cooks, much like Darnell Mooney, he's a dark horse to lead the NFL in targets because who else is Davis Mills going to throw this ball to? Brandon Cooks, in my opinion, is one of the most disrespected wide receivers in fantasy football history. And whenever I can get him at like the 9-10 turn here, I'm going to do it almost every time. So I filled my roster here. I have 5 receivers through 9 rounds, but you know what? They're going to be weekly starters for me, and I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, and this is kind of how I advocate building the team up, right? I mean, literally, Brandon Cooks. There's no reason not to think that Brandon Cooks is going to be a top 24 receiver this year. Nothing has changed other than the fact that Davis Mills is in his second year, right? So we can almost like hope for an improvement from the 20 overall finish that he had last year. He's been nothing but consistent his entire career. I can literally remember being in like seventh grade. I think I've said this on this channel. I remember being in seventh grade, drafting him in like redraft back when he was with like the Saints. And he friggin' I have a friend texting me, oh, like that's a good pick. Like he's so underrated, right? And it's like here we are still in 2022. He's still underrated and you're getting him at a huge value. So I do love Brandon Cooks a lot there. But here I am, and I'm going to stick to the game plan, right? Through thick and thin. And it's just panning out beautifully. Hunter Renfro, I'm gonna take him. He's a
I
guy.
love it. I love it.
You're higher on him than I am, but I mean, I couldn't be happier that he fell into my lap here. And I'm starting to think that my team's going to be a real good contender this year. If I can fill out, the last 4 or 5 picks with some solid running backs that I think are going to be decent for this year for 2022, and then I don't even care if they're on my roster for next year. I mean, there's a lot of guys on the board that I see later that I feel like I'm gonna feel good about plugging in as an RB3, and I'm gonna take another guy again who might help me win this league, and another top 24 receiver this year. Who I'm projecting at least, and Allen Robinson, another guy who, we've done a couple of these, so we end up taking a couple of the same guys pretty often. But I mean, I guess I'm just screaming for them. I feel like there's no one else on the board that I'd rather have on this team right now, even on a team that's young. It's like, dude, take Allen Robinson and just take the million points that he's probably going to score this year. And if things don't pan out for the team, okay, trade him to someone whose team is working out, right? If both my running backs get hurt, shit hits the fan. I'm going to get a lot more value out of a guy like Allen Robinson, at least I think, than someone like, I don't know, who's on like Chase Claypool or like Gabe Davis. I don't really believe in. And I mean, I know you're big on Brandon Ayuk, and I guess I'm thinking you're probably going to go with him here. But I mean, even though we're stacked on receivers, but I think I really just like Allen Robinson at his price, and I want him on my roster and in almost all spots. I mean, and this kind of goes back to what you talked about in our last video, where like you can get them easier in a startup draft than you can get them on the trade market, right? So I'm taking advantage of this right now, and knowing that I couldn't buy him for a price that I'd be happy with, so I'm going to buy him in the startup draft where I feel like I'm getting him for pretty cheap.
Yeah, I like that because, you have question marks, right? You have Godwin, who might not play at the start of the season. You have Olave, who's a rookie. You have Bateman, who we've seen a very small sample size out of. And Renfro and Robinson, they can definitely be every week starters for you, not just for the first several weeks while your rookies are getting up to speed, but just in general, right? So I really like that. And the every pick that you take makes me think like, oh man, like you're actually gonna compete against me in this league now, right? Because when you first started off and you were like, just thinking young, Kyle Pitts, Waddle, ETN, I was like, all right, you know what? Those guys might still take another year or two before they're like really established elite options in season. But obviously we know their dynasty value, right? And it makes sense that they would go that high. But we only have a few rounds left here, right? We're only doing 15 rounds here today. And I still need an RB3. However, I still need a flex while Jameson Williams is gone, right? And you alluded to it. I think I am going to take Brandon Ayuk. George Pickens, with the hype that he's getting, kind of tempted here, not going to lie, but I would take Ayuk over Pickens in a 1-for-1. I still really like Chase Edmonds as an RB3, but again, Chase Edmonds is going to sit on my bench where Brandon Ayuk could actually see time here. So I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk and hope that I can get a guy like Chase Edmonds when it comes back to me, because I'm really, really starting to feel the pressure of getting some RB depth here.
Yeah, and I know I made the point that Allen Robinson might be a guy that I could trade, but I think you're better off like in your spot, like go with your guy, right? I think maybe like when I talked about earlier Kyle Pitts situation, maybe in the earlier rounds, if you know that you're going to get a huge value for a guy on the trade market, like there's no doubt, right? Then that might be a move. But as far as the later rounds, especially if you're not like going here, like at the 11-8 where you have a pick on the wraparound, go with your guy 100 times out of 100 and walk away from the draft happy instead of worrying about trying to make a move when it's kind of tough to make moves after the draft when everyone just picked, every guy that they wanted when they were on the board, right? So, yeah, go with your guy and go with Brandon Ayuk if you're like Mikey.
Yeah, I really think he's going to have a big breakout year. I won't really hammer down too much because there's tons of footage on this channel of me talking about Brandon Ayuk. If you want to hear me, just literally click on any other video, and I probably bring them up out of the blue. So we'll skip over that. So Chase Edmonds did fall to me, which he's intriguing. Rashad Penny, also intriguing, right? I'm not really a big believer in rookie year Kenny Walker. Rashad Penny had an absolute insane stretch at the end of the 2021 season. Very high upside pick here in the 11th round. We also got Ramondre Stevenson, who's poised for a bigger year. We got Rashad White, who looks like he's going to be the bona fide RB2 in Tampa. And if something happens to Leonard Fournette, I mean, it's going to be wheels up for Rashad White. So there's actually a lot to like here out of the running back position. Now, Javonte and Aaron Jones are going to be my go-to every week. And then my flex is probably going to be wide receivers, right? I think I'm actually going to go with this is the first time I'm ever consciously making this decision in a startup draft, but I'm going to go with the upside of Rashad Penny. Kenny Walker is having surgery already. We don't know what his status is for week 1. And every day that he's not on the practice field, especially as a rookie, he is getting so far behind Rashad Penny in the competition for touches there. And I know we haven't seen a healthy season out of Penny, but man, if he can replicate even just a little bit of what he did in the last half of last season, I'm totally fine with getting him as my RB3. I believe he's still in his first contract. He is 26 years old already. I think he's playing in a contract year, right? But yeah, dude, you can't deny that getting a guy who put up 26, 19, 32, and 25, 4 out of 5 weeks in the 11th round, you can't deny it's not at least a little bit exciting.
Yeah, and I'm kind of upset because I was hoping he was going to be my RB3. And I mean, he's a guy who's going to be in your starting lineups, right? When he's healthy, anytime he's seen over a 50% snap share, he's going off, right? I've ranted and raved about him in the later rounds. I love him as one of those depth running backs, and I think you got a really good value there. I mean, in the 11th, I love you're going after 2 things, right? In the entire draft, right? It's points and just long-term value. Kind of depends where you're at with where your team builds at, but I love Rashad Penny at that price. I love it compared to the guys who are on the board, right? And like, I hate to say it, but I would have been so much happier with Rashad Penny than the Chase Edmonds that I'm going to end up with here, right? Because it's few and far between that we've seen Chase Edmonds put up the games that we saw Rashad Penny put up last year, right? But I do think that he is the next best option, and he is going to lead back in Miami for as long as he's healthy, and he's really efficient. So I'm not too upset about it, right? He's going to be a plug-and-play guy, but I was excited to have Rashad Penny, who I was planning on being a weekly starter when he was in the lineup.
Yeah, that's the thing. Edmonds is the safe RB3. Penny is the I'm going to shoot my shot kind of RB3, right? And especially with, I keep bringing it up, but Jameson Williams, I'm not going to have him for the first several weeks of the season. Like, I need that flex filler. So Rashad Penny, especially in the beginning of the season, like that's when he could really shine. So yeah, I'll be pretty happy to get him. Chances are we got 4 rounds left. Chances are I'll probably go 2, maybe even 3 more running backs because I really like running back diversity. And, if this were a full 20 rounds, that's when I would take my backup quarterback. That's when I would take my backup tight end. But, just to shorten it up a little bit, we're only doing 15 rounds here. So I might not even take a backup quarterback and a backup tight end because I do have Jalen Hurts and Mark Andrews, those two big positional advantages, right? So if you're watching this, no, I will take a backup quarterback and a backup tight end at some point. But for the sake of this, since it's not a full 20 rounds, I might not. Just a heads up.
Yeah, and I mean, if you really want to, like, you can go to any of our mock drafts and just skip to the later rounds and all the running backs that we like in this range. I mean, we've talked about before. They're the same ones we're taking every time. It's Rashad Penny, it's Melvin Gordon, it's Chase Edmonds, it's Devin Singletary, and I mean, I do actually like. I think Kareem Hunt actually went kind of a pretty good value over there down the 9-4 down near Miles Sanders too, but missed on that one. But here I am. I'm kind of stuck with that quarterback. The plan kind of fell apart after I went Allen Robinson, a lot of the guys that I was comfortable with went. So figured why not wait a little bit longer, right? And I'm planning on taking another two receivers here, right? I mean, if these were the last couple of rounds of the draft, maybe I would lean running back just out of need. But here I'm going to take a guy who I think is at a tremendous value as well, and another pretty young guy at only 25 years old who just got a massive contract to be the number one receiver for who everyone thinks is going to be a generational quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who should be taking a massive step up this year. And Christian Kirk finished as the wide receiver, 26 last year as the wide receiver too, with an inconsistent Arizona offense. So I like him as a number one receiver. I actually liked him coming out of college too. I want him to go play for Dallas, but I'm taking him here. I think he's a shifty guy and he can make plays, and I think he's got a good spot and a good opportunity for targets here. So a guy who I think could also finish, top 36 in terms of receivers this year, pretty easily. Even if Trevor Lawrence doesn't really pan out, he's just going to get a lot of targets. So I'm good with him. I might end up looking to grab Trevor Lawrence in the next round because I do already have ETN, and now I have Christian Kirk, so I'm kind of invested. And he fits the build perfectly, right? The young quarterback. So I might go with him.
Just going with that super stack there. But no,
it wasn't planned, right? But it kind of just fell into my lap, and I don't feel terrible about it, right? There's still guys I can still grab Kirk Cousins later as a production piece for right now to hold me over, right? He's a serviceable QB1. There's still guys that are on the board, right? Jameis Winston probably be pretty good this year. We'll see, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that pick in the 12th round because, like you said, I mean, he just got paid a shit ton. He's going to be the de facto wide receiver one for a guy that is supposed to come in and be a generational quarterback. So nothing wrong with that at 1202. And I'm really pumped that you didn't go double running back because to be honest with you, I was stuck between Rashad Penny and Ramondre Stevenson on my last one, not even Chase Edmonds. And I'm very happy to get Penny and Stevenson as my RB3, RB4. Suddenly, I feel so much better about the depth on this team. Trevor Lawrence just went, sorry, buddy. But Ramondre Stevenson, we talked about him a couple of videos ago. He is suddenly finding himself in the James White role. But on top of that, he's going to be splitting carries with Damian Harris in the early downs. So there's a lot to like about Stevenson. And funny enough, one of my leagues today, and I kid you not, this is a real trade. Somebody traded Ramondre Stevenson for Antonio Gibson straight up because they're so hyped up on Stevenson and people are so afraid of Gibson. Gibson went 406. I just got Ramondre at 1203. Like, I definitely don't think that people should be selling Gibson for Stevenson straight up, personally. But that 8-round disparity, at cost, I would take Stevenson over Gibson. So pretty happy to get him as my RB4 there.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say, don't do that straight up. Get something on top of it, right? But, I mean, I don't know, at the end of the day, your guy's your guy. But, I mean, I don't want to just throw away value that I can get elsewhere, right? If, I can get a couple maybe 2 second-round picks for Antonio Gibson, right? He is still a decent running back. He's just kind of in a bad situation right now. And, I mean, who knows? Situations change, right, especially for running backs. So here we are. I'm going to go with –
Oh, no, it's my turn. Don't you be taking my guy.
God. Oh, God, don't do it. Don't take your backup quarterback. That's going to ruin my freaking day.
Well, I could go Derek Carr here and just completely ruin your day. And I'm honestly tempted to. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Derek Carr, not just to screw you over, but I don't often go for a backup quarterback when I reach on a guy in the 6th round in Jalen Hurts. But we know Jalen Hurts is volatile. We know that for every bit of upside that he has, he's also risky. And I'll be the first one to admit that, even though I am very high on Jalen Hurts. Derek Carr is about as safe as they come. And I don't think you're going to find a higher upside in the 13th round. Like we've both agreed, more so me, but I've gotten you to admit it at least once. Finishing as a top 6, top 7 quarterback in 2022 is very well within reach for Derek Carr. He's got an absolute arsenal in front of him, a very good team around him. And he's in a very competitive division that's going to be just absolutely awesome for fantasy points because it's going to be offense galore. So I said I wasn't going to go backup quarterback. I did it anyway, and I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry at all.
I only did it because you're silly. I tricked you into it. I'm taking my man. I'm happy. I would be remiss if I let a mock draft go by without touching Calvin Ridley. So here I am. Just so you know, I have Kirk Cousins over Derek Carr in my dynasty rankings just by one. I think they're back to back. But I mean, I'll just go with Kirk in the 15th and take Calvin Ridley, who's going to win me the league next year when he's the wide receiver 6. I just got him at the end of the 13th.
Did you see Calvin Ridley sent out a tweet earlier today, and it just said 2023 Calvin Ridley, and I saw that, and I immediately knew that you were just screaming somewhere.
Dude, I got the notification on my phone. I don't think I ever subscribed to his tweets, but I think because I was scrolling through his Twitter like a couple weeks ago, I think the algorithm just kind of like hacked my phone. The CIA is watching and all that shit. But yeah, I mean, 2023, dude. I called it before Calvin Ridley did. So.
All right. Well, you can't use him until 2023. So who are you taking to use in round 14 here?
I'm going RB4 here, and I'm pretty a little torn between Brian Robinson and Darrell Henderson, but just because I think I like his offense a lot better, and I think the target share is probably going to be pretty similar between the two. I'm going to go Darrell Henderson. The guy was just solid as they come last year, right? I mean, he was scoring like 15, 16 points a week. I could look back right now, right? Yeah, about that, right? They were about 15, 16 points a week. He had a couple boom games, a couple lower games, right? Around that average of 16. I didn't pull up the stats. But I think he's going to get a decent amount of workload even with a healthy Cam Akers. I don't really believe in Cam Akers all that much, but Darrell Henderson, he produced for a lot of people last year, and he was a really good value. I mean, he scored 5 touchdowns last year on the ground and 3 through the air as well. So he could very well get a good amount of receiving work. I don't know how much with the arrival of Allen Robinson, but I mean, they had Robert Woods last year. He was good too, right? So, I mean, it's not like there's going to be a million targets that are, getting sucked away. But yeah, I like Darrell Henderson there as my RB4. And my build is pretty fragile, right? I mean, if something happens to Etienne and Jacobs, then I'm just hoping that Edmonds was in my starting lineup to begin with, right? But yeah, I feel like I have a ton of value on this team and a really bright future. Darrell Henderson's another guy who's young and probably going to get another contract and be a serviceable, journeyman running back somewhere else if he doesn't stay in LA. So yeah, I'm good with him. I think he'll be on my team for a while.
Yeah, I think him and Cam Akers are going to be significantly more split than a lot of people would like to admit. So getting Darrell Henderson in the 14th round, I'm going to do that 10 out of 10 times. I think that's a really good value. I know I said I wasn't going to go backup quarterback, and I did. I know I said I wasn't going to go backup tight end, but I'm going to because Cole Kmet should not still be here. At 1403, I think Cole Kmet is just such a good value. And I'm looking at the rest of this list, and I would rather have Cole Kmet in a 1-for-1 over like every single one of these guys, especially in 1 QB leagues. I mean, dude, Cole Kmet saw, nearly 100 targets last year. He had 93 targets last year. I kind of said it when I was talking about Darnell Mooney. Justin Fields has absolutely no one to throw to besides Mooney and Cole Kmet. So Cole Kmet, he's another one of those guys. He could be hyper-targeted at the tight end position this year by Justin Fields just simply out of necessity. But not only that, I mean, Cole Kmet, he's only 23 years old. He looked the part last year. He wasn't scoring any touchdowns, which did suck, but those will come. Touchdowns, it's kind of a random stat in the NFL. Obviously, you can predict it to some degree, but with that being said, it's pretty easy to say that Cole Kmet's not a guy that's going to show up with 0 touchdowns every single year. So I don't really need a tight end to pivot on because I have Mark Andrews. So I can take my young guy and hope that he pans out. There was a part of me that was tempted to take Trey McBride because I think he's going to be a really good tight end. But Cole Kmet's, we've already seen it out of him, right? So I figured, you know what? That's kind of a match made in heaven. He'll be my TE2, very good plug and play option when Mark Andrews is out on his bye week. And you never know. I think Cole Kmet is going to be one of the biggest risers at the tight end position in 2022. So it's just a good value pick at the 14th round.
And Cole Kmet's another guy that we've been screaming for, right? We think the touchdown production is going to come up, right? Again, I worry about the Chicago offense, but I mean, he was hyper targeted, right? And they've only had targets vacate there. I want to ask you though, if you didn't grab Mark Andrews in the second, and let's say you went with Devontae Adams, right? You're still a very much win now build. Would you have been considering Hunter Henry there for what we think is going to be, probably top 10, top 12 production this year? Or would you have gone, do you think you still would have gone with Trey McBride?
I would, so if I needed a tight end,
Or
right?
Komet, right? Or Cole Kmet, I guess.
Yeah, if I needed a tight end, maybe I would consider Henry, but I'm taking Komet over Henry even as soon as 2022. I have no problem with that. If I needed a win now tight end, then yeah, I would take Henry over McBride. But it would, I mean, I would really have to have screwed myself in this draft to be in a situation where I'm taking Henry over McBride or Komet, because I do feel Komet is in my top 10 for dynasty rankings right now for the tight ends. McBride, I think, is number 14 or 15. So just very happy to get either one of those guys in the 14th round. Probably could have gone with McBride since I do have Andrews, but like I said, we've already seen it from Komet. So happy to go with that. I only got 30 seconds here, so I'm going to make a quick pick. And I'm just going to take a flyer in this last round, right? Could be JD McKissick because I could use an RB5. I'm a big fan of RB depth, but I'm not going to go that route because if we had 20 rounds, I would probably just end the draft with 2 or 3 running backs. I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs. Was just talking about him a couple of videos ago. He has been my sleeper rookie wide receiver since like February of this year. Big fan of his. Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of his. Even if he emerges just to be the wide receiver 3 in Green Bay and he has some sort of sustainability there, getting him in the 15th round is just such good value. And at the very least, Romeo Doubs right now, like if I wanted to flip him and turn him into a 2023 second round pick, I could do that. Like getting that value in the 15th round, that's why I'm going Romeo Doubs at this point, because he's got so much hype that I could either hold on to him just because I want to or sell him just because I can. I think in the 15th round, you're not going to find many guys that are going to offer the upside of being able to be sold for a second round pick like that. So I'll take him.
Yeah, and I think a second round pick, you might almost like have to, right? And when you're getting him in the 5th round, it's like, well, I'm kind of like spitting at your second round pick next year, or I'm like giving you a bunch of props and like assuming it's going to be the 210, right, in a 10-team league or something like that. But yeah, I like the Doubs pick. We talked about him in the last video. If you want some more information, go check that one out, right? But so, or I guess not the last video, the video before that. But here, just to fill out the roster, I'm going to go Kirk Cousins, guy who I'm just constantly comfortable with in the end of the draft. If I was on the board and we had 20 rounds, I probably would have gone with Jalen Tolbert here, just to stick with young mentality. The guy, he would be the number 2 in Dallas. So God forbid anything happened to CeeDee Lamb, I guess I have an insurance policy. Or I mean, I guess I'm just splitting up the Dallas offense and screwing myself out of a pick. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with Kirk Cousins and fill out the roster and be happy with my starting lineup here.
Yeah, and it's probably the best move, right? Kirk Cousins, I probably would take him over Mac Jones, who was on the board. I'd take him over Zach Wilson, who was on the board. I know we're talking dynasty, but like, there's a reason why those guys have an ADP this far down. The upside is just so limited, and really the only thing that they've got going for them is the youth, right?
In a one QB league, right? Like the upside is really limited in a 1 QB league. If you're drafting like Zach Wilson in a super flex, then like it will be pretty significant if he goes from like the QB, what was he, 30 or something last year, or 29 or whatever, to the 15 or 14. But in a 1 QB league, like that's really like insignificant if they do blow up in value there. So I think that's a big difference. And Kirk Cousins he's only 33, right? I mean, we see these quarterbacks play until they're 38, and with the passion that we see out of Kirk Cousins, I mean, I think I would like to see him yelling out, asking me if I like that at age 38. I think he's fun to watch.
I think you need to rethink that sentence.
Yeah, I stumbled over my words. It's been a long day. I've been up since like 4 o'clock this morning. So
I can just tell you right now, I can't think of a single scenario where a 33-year-old man is standing over me saying you like that, and I'm appreciative.
Dude, I didn't even think of it that way, you sicko. Why would you? This is a kid's show. This is a kid's show.
Of course, yeah. We don't curse or do anything bad on this show. It's definitely a kid's show. But
it's funny, every time we go to like upload the video, it's like, no, this isn't made for kids.
Yeah. Always have to mark that because as much as I would like it to be a family friendly show and we could show it to people of all ages, neither one of us really have a filter that's kind of out of our wheelhouse. So it is what it is. Let's take a look at your team here. Quarterbacks, very easy to talk about. Kirk Cousins. You ended talking about him, so we'll kind of just skip right over that. Perfectly fine having him as your starter. It's mostly the wide receiver show here, right? So we'll save the wide receivers for last. We'll actually just move into tight end. Kyle Pitts, that's it. No backup tight ends. How do you feel looking at this roster knowing you don't have a backup tight end through 15 rounds?
So as I look, well, I guess I can't even look at the queue anymore. This stinks, doesn't it? How do I see what players are still on? This is ridiculous. But I mean, there are guys that am I getting laggy? This thing's getting weird.
No, you're good.
Yeah, there's guys that I could have gone with later on. I mean, we talked about like a guy like Brevin Jordan who could really blow up this year. I might have done things differently going back, right? But I mean, I can't really tell myself that I would have rather had Pat Frymuth on this team than Hunter Renfrow because, I mean, yeah, he did produce last year, but how much more is he going to be producing than Kyle Pitts, right? He probably wouldn't have helped me out that much. It's hard for me to say that I would have rather had Dawson Knox either, or maybe even Zach Ertz over Allen Robinson. I'm not sure what I really could have done differently. Maybe Cole Kmet over Darrell Henderson, but at that time, yeah, I mean, five tight ends were on the board. I mean, I guess I'm just beat for it, but I mean, I invested my second round pick, the early second round pick at that, right, on Kyle Pitts. So it's tough for me to be too concerned about investing more in tight ends, right?
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine because I mean, I did the same thing. I went Mark Andrews one pick after he went Kyle Pitts, and I really wasn't planning on taking a tight end. It's just I am really high on Cole Kmet this year, and it wasn't so much that I took him because I needed a backup tight end. I took him because I just thought he was the best value on the board at that point, right? So I think situationally it kind of worked out, and I got a backup tight end. But I don't blame you for not getting a backup tight end through 15 rounds because again, like you took Kyle Pitts 202. If you're going to spend an early pick like that, like commit to it. And clearly you did. So I think it's perfectly fine. As I mean, obviously if something happens to Kyle Pitts, that sucks. But in a perfect world, nothing happens and he's just going to sit in your tight end spot every single week besides the bye week.
But the reality is like I can go out and make a move and go buy, maybe a Mike Gesicki for a second round pick. And now I'm really only losing 2 or 3 points probably this year out of my lineup while Kyle Pitts is hurt. So I mean, there's moves to be made and there's always ways to work things out, right? That's why I kind of advocate for just going for who you think the best player on the board is and who's going to put up the most points and have the most value for you in the long run and who you're going to be able to manipulate, right? I mean, this really is it's a game of chess, right? I mean, you're trying to get the best pieces on the board and you're trying to have the most valuable pieces on the board, right? I want all queens on my board, right? I don't want I don't want all pawns left, right? I want all my important pieces. So I mean, I'm going with the most valuable guy every time, and I'm working out the lineup later and figuring that all out as we cross that road,
So the running back room, pretty risky, right? I think you would probably agree with that. ETN, we haven't seen anything out of. Josh Jacobs could be in a completely new situation next year. And then obviously Chase Edmonds and Darrell Henderson are your only backup running backs. Give me your honest take on this running back room. Do you think that you have a shot this year with this running back room, or do you think it's kind of the running back room of tomorrow?
I mean, if healthy, I definitely think so. I mean, we haven't seen any reasons to think Josh Jacobs won't be healthy. I mean, Travis Etienne, yeah, high risk, high upside guy. Yeah, the build is super fragile, right? But I mean, when you're just loading up with tradable guys like Bateman, Olave, Renfro, Allen Robinson, Christian Kirk, right? I mean, you can combo these guys to go grab an Elijah Mitchell if he's panning out, or Kenneth Walker and AJ Dillon, right? You can combo these guys and figure it out later. So I'm much more interested in getting my two solid guys and then worrying about the depth later. I mean, running backs just get hurt too often for me to really put significant value into a guy who's probably not going to be in my starting lineup in a PPR league when I can get guys like Allen Robinson, who I think are going to finish in the top 24 and just give me a huge advantage, instead of a guy who's going to sit on my IR for for half the year, you know. Are you there? Oh, there you are. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
see what's going.
Yeah, sorry. Just a quick momentary lapse there. I had to step away for a second, but I was listening. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's it's an exciting running back room, right? Like Josh Jacobs could go out there, could be a wide receiver, could be a running back room. Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
could be a top 10 RB this year because of the pure amount of volume he gets. If Travis Etienne hits his ceiling, like that's another potentially top 10, top 15 running back there at worst. Chase Edmonds could hit as a top 20, top 24 guy. And then Darrell Henderson, like we kind of mentioned, if him and Cam Akers do split some time, it's a really good value in the 14th round. So risky running back room for sure, but I wouldn't call it a bad running back room by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I think even if one of those guys goes down, right? I mean, let's say in a in a random world, right, where one of them pans out, one of them doesn't, right? I either have a consistent Josh Jacobs or a really high upside Travis Etienne, and then I'm making up that value when I have Hunter Renfrow starting as my wide receiver 4 and Allen Robinson as my wide receiver 5, right? And then even Christian Kirk some weeks, right? And I think I'm getting that positional advantage that can make up for it. If one of these guys gets hurt and I have to go buy another middling running back, right? And that's kind of why I vow to wait, right? Is because I don't want to have to replace a guy that's super high value, right? If my running back gets hurt, I don't want to have to break the bank to go buy another one to replace his production. I'd rather be invested in that production in a more consistent position. And I mean, I've been advocating for that. I'm a huge proponent of that in the offseason. I might start talking differently when we get into the season and these guys are healthy, but I mean, there's just too much risk involved in spending all those high draft picks on running backs when I'm not going to be able to replace them later because I'm just not going to have the value on my roster.
Yeah, and I know you definitely tend to lean wide receivers a lot earlier, and I'm one of the people that I still lean running back a lot earlier, which we'll talk about when we get to my team. But let's take a look at your wide receiver room, right? So you rounded it out: CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Godwin, Bateman, Olave, Renfro, Robinson, Kirk, Calvin Ridley for next year. I mean, this is a really good wide receiver room. You, without looking at the rest of the board, like you probably have at least a top 3 wide receiver room in this entire league, right? So kudos to you. I know that that's typically how you build your team. I know you put a lot of focus on your wide receivers and your Kyle Pittses for sure. But yeah, it's a really good mix. You got CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle, who are both young top 10 options. You got Godwin, who is a top 10 option when healthy. Bateman, Olave, very young. Renfro, Robinson, really good win now pieces. And then Christian Kirk's kind of a scratch off, right? But the value is there. And Calvin Ridley, if he comes back and does what Calvin Ridley does, it's fantastic value. So I think your wide receiver room is definitely, it's safe to say, this is leading the charge for your team in 2022 and beyond. And I think you did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I'm really not relying on anybody that's old and elderly and about to hit the retirement homes, right? I mean, Allen Robinson is the only one who's really over 28 on the team, and Calvin Ridley's going to be 28 by the next time we see him play. But yeah, I mean, the window is really wide, and just committing myself to old running backs didn't really make sense to me, and it almost never does, especially when Team 10 takes 6 of them in the first 6 rounds. So.
Oh, good news. Just got a notification. Michael Gallup is officially running routes again. So there you go. Your boy in Dallas is nearing a return, it sounds like. But we'll move on to my team here. Completely different from your team, right? Like you and I had 2 different tactics. I'm glad, like we said, like I went 108, you went 109, because it kind of offers 2 different perspectives from a very similar spot in the draft. So I went Jalen Hurts and Derek Carr. I think no matter how you swing it, I'm going to have at least a top 6, top 7 quarterback in my lineup pretty much every week. I'm very high on both of these guys. Normally, I wouldn't take a second quarterback as early as round 13, but I usually wouldn't take a quarterback as early as round 6 in a 1 QB. So I'm perfectly content with this. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a league winner this year. I think he has, obviously Josh Allen has a better chance of it, but Jalen Hurts is probably in the top 3, top 4 when it comes to percentage wise on the outcome of them being the overall QB1 on the season, because there's just a lot of things that could go his way. But if things don't go his way, I got Derek Carr, who should be a pretty easy top 10 option with Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller this year.
Yeah, and I really wonder, like, I'm looking at the board, and I just wonder what the win rate is for one quarterback teams that draft quarterbacks in the top 5 rounds, right? Because it's like, what is really the difference between a Jalen Hurts, a Dak Prescott, a Trey Lance, than compared to Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow? It's a couple points a week, right? But I mean, they're still putting up 20 plus, right? So I mean, I would just be curious to see what the win rate was. So I was kind of not even really paying attention to what you were talking about. Which room were you just talking about, so I can criticize you?
Oh no, I was only talking about mine really, but
Oh, just overall, the
there's
overall team. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm just saying like Jalen Hurts, it's within the realm of possibility for him to be the overall QB1 this year, right?
yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
and I know some people can argue it, but I don't think there's many good arguments against it. So at cost like 603, and I reached on him at 603, but I'd be a lot sooner to take Jalen Hurts at 603 than Josh Allen at 210 just because of the guys that are still there. So that's my tactic in a 1 QB. Even round 6 is a little bit early for me. If I saw value on the board elsewhere, I would have done it. My rule of thumb is when you're drafting, until you get to like the later rounds and you need to really start paying attention to depth, like draft best available, take the best value that's there, and the rest, and your roster will kind of put itself together over the course of the entire draft. And that's exactly what I did here. Took Jalen Hurts because I thought he was the best available, and I don't regret it. But we went from quarterbacks to the tight end when we were talking about your team. So we'll do the same for mine. Very similar situation. I took Mark Andrews 1 pick after you took Kyle Pitts. Then I took Cole Kmet a little bit later just because I thought he was the best value there. Again, didn't take Cole Kmet because I needed a backup tight end. Took him because I thought he was the best value on the board. I'm sticking with it after looking at everyone that went, the 10 to 12 picks after him. So no problem there for me. And Mark Andrews is just this supreme positional advantage. He scores more points than Travis Kelce, and he's only 4 more years older than Kyle Pitts, 6 years younger than Travis Kelce, who is still the dynasty like TE3, TE4 at worst in every single ranking. And you brought this up in a video a couple weeks ago. You said that Mark Andrews, like if you could have Travis Kelce and turn back the clock 6 years, wouldn't you take that over almost anyone in the entire league? And that's exactly how I view Mark Andrews, right? That's exactly what he is. He's Travis Kelce 6 years ago. So we can expect a lot of production out of him over the next handful of seasons. Very happy with that pick.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 for your tight end room. A plus. You literally, I don't think I could have handpicked a better combo of two, especially at the values. Like getting Cole Kmet as a backup, like it's perfect, right? He's gonna perfectly fill the role. He's gonna put up 10 points when Mark Andrews has his bye week, and then in a couple years, he's probably gonna accrue a lot of value if he starts putting up touchdowns, right? So A plus, 10 out of 10 for the tight ends. I couldn't have done it better if I wanted to. If I tried.
Yeah, very happy with my QBs. Very happy with my tight ends. The rest of it, my running backs and wide receivers, it's not my favorite team I've ever drafted, but I definitely don't hate it. Javonte and Aaron Jones, both of them are RB1s this year. I think that's easy to assume. Both of them are going to be RB1s in 2022. Even with Javonte Williams splitting carries with Melvin Gordon last year in a 50-50 split, he was the 16 or 17 overall. And even this year, actually earlier this week, Melvin Gordon came out in an interview and was like, yeah, the Denver coaches, like they want Javonte to be the guy. I'm just here. So that's all I really needed to hear. It's Javonte to the moon. I can't wait to see what he does this year. I do think Aaron Jones probably will score a bit more than Javonte Williams, all things considered this year. But Javonte's only 22 years old. Got him at the 108. More than happy to make him my first pick there. And then Rashad Penny and Ramondre Stevenson. Even though I only have 2 backup running backs here, it's all upside picks, right? If Kenny Walker doesn't play and Rashad Penny is healthy, that is probably the best value of the 11th rounder later for sure. And then Ramondre Stevenson, if he can pick up the James White role and add early down work onto that, why wouldn't he be able to be a top 25, top 30 running back this year? So pretty happy with my running back room. Not ecstatic because I would like to see more depth, but it's 4 running backs through 15 rounds. I think that's acceptable.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but Calvin Ridley is the best value in every single startup draft that's happened this awesome.
I can't with you in that. I
Right.
can't.
But no, I do love your running back room. Having a solidified young guy and then another solidified guy who's just going to put up a billion points. Like, I don't care that you're going to have to recycle him in a year or two. I mean, when you're gonna take that production, you set yourself up to almost automatically make the playoffs. Like when you have a running back that at least does what we think Aaron Jones is going to do this year, it just elevates your team. You almost can't win without a running back like that. So I love it. And I think Javonte could end up being a running back like that as well. So I mean, you're really awesome there with your starting two. And then yeah, the depth here is awesome. Two young guys that have a lot of upside. Rashad Penny, we've already seen. He's a complete animal when he's healthy. We already talked about that before, right? And then Ramondre Stevenson, who we think he's going to get an uptick in carries this year and is going to be a lead guy in New England. And if not a lead guy, he'll be a lead guy in weeks 3, 4, 7, 9, and 8. When yeah, like whenever, whichever way the wind's blowing, right? If it's north, it'll be Ramondre Stevenson. If it's west, we'll see whoever else, right? We'll see someone from Timbuktu, whoever they pulled off the street, right? But I do like getting a piece of the New England offense because you never know when it's going to be a 20-point week for him.
Yeah, and then my wide receiver room, I'm just ecstatic with. I mean, T. Higgins, my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. Keenan Allen, while he's not a top 20 Dynasty wide receiver for me right now, or he's probably in the lower part of that top 20, he's a top 12 guy in redraft, and I wanted at least something like that on my team. If I went with Aaron Jones, I needed to get a wide receiver equivalent. That's going to be Keenan Allen. Jameson Williams, young, going to be a stud when he's healthy. Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks, Brandon Ayuk. Just a shit ton of upside between those 3 guys. Mooney and Cooks, I mentioned, are dark horse candidates to both be leading the NFL in targets by the end of this year because there's just no competition around them. And then I think Ayuk could have a really, really awesome breakout year. And then the only guy that I didn't really highlight there is Romeo Doubs, which he's a scratch-off ticket. But hey, if Aaron Rodgers is endorsing him, I can endorse him too. So very happy with this wide receiver room. Honestly, pretty happy with how this entire team turned out. Like I said, is it my favorite team that I've ever drafted? No. But would I still be pretty thrilled to enter 2022 with this team? Absolutely. I would be pretty pumped with this.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, like what you did here and how it came together too, right? Because you have like stud young guy in T Higgins, and you have the stud Mister Consistent in Keenan Allen, right? And then there's another young JMO, young Darnell Mooney, old Brandon Cooks, young Brandon Ayuk, right? So it's like you only have 2 guys that you're really going to be replacing, and I think that T Higgins, JMO, Darnell Mooney, and Brandon Ayuk, I think you're going to be fine. And then Romeo Doubs, right? The scratch off. I think you're going to be just fine in the long term. I think Aaron Jones is really going to be the only guy that you have to replace. And there's a chance that Rashad Penny over the next 3 years could just magically stay healthy and, I don't know, find a late career boom, right? And just production and just be that guy if he stays healthy, right? So I think you're in a good spot to win and continue winning, even though you didn't really dedicate yourself to that. It kind of just panned out that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped with this. This is a team that's going to have some sustained success for at least a few seasons here. But that's going to do it for us here on That Dynasty Show. Quick shout out to our subscriber and Discord member, Josh Pope, for giving us the idea to do this. Hopefully the insights that we provided will help you out a little bit when you're tackling the Dynasty startup in a couple of weeks. Hopefully you kill it. Hopefully you go with my tactic, not Tyler's, because I'm always right. He's always wrong. You know how it goes. But seriously, thanks for commenting and giving us a quick little idea of something we could do. We're more than happy to take requests. You know, it's one of the really good things about us, you know, still being a smaller channel, is that if you have requests, there's a pretty decent chance that we can do that for you. So if you got anything that you want to see, whether it's a mock draft, want us to review your team, or if you just have an idea and you just want to hear some of my thoughts, some of Tyler's thoughts on a very specific topic, give us that too. We're more than happy to run it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, thanks for subscribing and watching, guys. And credit to you, Mikey, for drafting a decent team. I know it's really tough when you've got a juggernaut like me picking right after you and then right before you. Nobody that you want falls to you, you know, after the turn. I know it's got to be tough, but you made the most of a rough situation, and I'm proud of you for that. And I give you a lot of credit for sticking to it and fighting the good fight and making the most out of your opportunities there, bud.
Yeah, well, I could rebuttal, but we're in a couple leagues together, and I'll rebuttal in real life in about 3 weeks when the season starts. But for myself, for Tyler, and for that Dynasty show, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.